Hi students, welcome to lesson number 6 on Karl Marx theory of social stratification. The introduction. Karl Marx is widely recognized as one of history's greatest philosophers. His ideas have affected people from all walks of life and from all walks of studies. His ideas of historical materialism was his most important contribution to understanding society and social processes, and this was a major departure from customary viewpoints. Marx attempted to explain social development through the lens of class antagonism. His research focused on social stratification. On the one hand, he considered it as an unavoidable for social progress. The objective of this lesson is that it will help the students to understand the views of Karl Marx for the theory of stratification. Marx views on stratification. Marx employed historical materialism as his theoretical framework for analyzing social change, and the existence of live human being was the first premise of history for him. The physical structure of human society and human relationship with nature are essential indicators of progress. Nature is a source of life for all living creatures, and plants require soil and water, cows require grass, and tigers require prey to survive. The humans are likewise reliant on nature for their survival. However, the basic difference between human beings and other living things is that they can transform nature for their survival, while other living things adapt to nature. A cow eats grass, but it cannot grow grass. Human beings exploit nature, but they have the power to transform it as well. This means that human beings are able to produce their own means of subsistence, and this is the basic difference between human and other living things. Marx therefore noted in his work German Ideology that men can be distinguished from animals by consciousness, by religion, or by anything one likes. They themselves begin to distinguish themselves from animals as soon as they begin to produce their means of subsistence, a step which is determined by their physical condition. In producing their actual means of subsistence, men indirectly produce their actual material life. It was through production that human beings developed. Primitive human beings were totally dependent on nature as they subsisted through hunting or food gathering, and these societies produced the minimum needs for survival. As human beings gradually started transforming nature, society was able to produce more for existence of the people. What were Marx's views on division of labor? Humans were able to enhance agriculture and build stable communities because two technological advancements. The community generated more than it needed as output increased. There was an advancement. People who were not directly involved in the production of food may now be supported. In older societies, everyone did the same things that were necessary for existence, such as eating, dressing, and sheltering. People were able to vary their activities once there was a surplus. As a result, some people produced enough food to feed everyone, while others indulged in other activities, and this is called division of labor. This system resulted in some people gaining control over the means of production by excluding others. Thus, property which was held by all came under the control of only some members, giving rise to the notion of private property. Hence, now the interests of all people were no longer common. there were differences in interest. Thus, the interest of individual became different from the interest of the community, and division of labor and private property are synonymous phrases. Marx said that it alluded to the tensions between personal and common interest. Due to the existence of private property, distinction in human society results in the establishment of classes which serve as the foundation for social stratification. There are two major groups in all stratified societies, that is, the ruling class and the subject class. The ruling class takes advantage of the oppressed or the subject class, and as a result, the two classes have a fundamental conflict of interest. Marx further stated that basic conflict of interest between the two classes is economy, and Marx further stated that in his work, that is the contribution of the critique of political economy, that the various institutions of societies such as the legal and political systems, religion, etc., are instruments of ruling class domination and serve to further its interest. Now, let us look into the concept of class as given by Karl Marx. In all stratification system, Marx used the term class to refer to the two basic strata, and as stated that all stratified civilizations have two major social groups, a ruling class and a subject class. The ruling class obtain its power through controlling the means of production, and as a result it is able to take the labor of another social group. And Marx writes in the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte that insofar as millions of families live under economic conditions of existence that separate their mode of life, their interest and their culture from those of the other classes and put them in hostile opposition to the latter, they form a class system of stratification according to Marx, and they arise from the interaction of social groups with the forces of production. And in all social or stratification system, Marx used the term class to refer to the main strata, and his definition of class includes distinct characteristics, that is, class consists of two major groups, one of which controls the means of production, and a result of his unique position in the social economy is able to appropriate the labor of the other. And as a result, a class is a social group whose members have the same relationship to the production forces or the forces of production. And this is what separates one class from another. Another feature of classes as seen in Marx's statement that they are antagonists to one another. And at the same time, there is a relationship of dependence between classes. If one class can appropriate the labor of another class because of its control over the means of production, it means that the two classes are dependent on each other, but they are also opposed to each other. The dialectics of class, therefore, is a result of the combination of dependence and opposition. And the relationship between classes is a dynamic relationship which results in social change. And this is why classes are central to Marx's approach to social transformation. In the Communist Manifesto, Marx writes, "The history of the hitherto existing society is a history of class struggle." In other words, changes in the history of mankind are caused by the conflict of classes. Classes conflict is hence the engine for social change, and the growth of class development of society is through the process of class conflict. The domination of one class over the other leads to class conflict. Alongside, the production process also develops due to changes in technology, further resulting in the improvement. And this leads to changes in the class structure as classes become absolute with increase in production techniques. New classes are then formed, replacing the old classes, and this leads to further class conflict. Western societies, according to Marx, have progressed through various stages, and that is primitive communism, ancient society, feudal society and capitalist society. Societies from the past reflect primitive communism, and those societies that rely on hunting and gathering food and do not have a division of labor. From then on, all civilizations are divided into two major classes: ancient societies, masters and slaves; feudal societies, landlords and serfs; and capitalist societies, capitalist and wage labor. During each historical epoch, the labor power required for production was supplied by the subject class, that is by slaves, serfs and wage laborers respectively. The polarization of classes into opposite groups is a result of class consciousness. This is a separate but related phenomena. It is not necessarily the result of class formation. Class consciousness is linked with the process of polarization of classes. A class can exist without its being aware of its class interest. In a passage from Louis Bonaparte's 18th Brumaire, Marx discusses the necessity of class formation, stating that a class is only conscious of its existence when it is aware of its opposition to another class. In another place, he states in his primary contribution, that is capital, that workers who are left on their own may not be conscious of their class interest as opposed to those of the other, that is the capitalist class. He observed that as capitalist production advances, a working class emerges, which through education, tradition and habit regards the circumstance of production as self-evident natural laws. In the ordinary run of things, the Marxian theory, laborer can be left to the natural laws of production as self-evident laws of nature. In the ordinary run of things, the laborer can be left to the natural laws of production. This static nature of class relation changes into a dynamic one with the development of class consciousness. Without class consciousness, the working is merely its relation to capital. It is a class in itself. In his book, Karl Marx, The Poverty of Philosophy, he expresses his dissatisfaction with the state of, according to the Marx, the working class that exists in this manner is merely a mass of individuals and not a class in and of itself. It forms itself into a class for itself when it joins forces in the fight against capitals. Its defending interest become class interest, and as a result, class is a dynamic entity in the Marxist paradigm. Although it is a subject to change as technology advances, the foundation for its formulation remains the same. In any culture, class is the foundation of the stratification system. Each society's production process is linked to classes. When the production process changes, changes in the class structure occurs, and as a result, the system of stratification in a society is dependent on the relations of production. Now, what is mode of production according to Karl Marx? Each epoch's method of production determines the social, political and religious characteristics of society at that point in time, as well as the nature of class relations. A certain mode of manufacturing gives rise to social classes. High level technology and capital, for example, are the means of production in the capitalist mode of production. This results in a system in which some people owns the means of production while others do not, and this is divided into two groups, the capitalist and the laborers. Now, what is class struggle according to Marx? According to Marx, class struggle is a constant element in all society. He claims that this conflict is unavoidable since every society's ruling class sooner or later sows the seeds of its own demise. This class battle is characterized by economic, political and intellectual oppression, and the rise of an opposing class is a result of exploitation. As a result, people feel alienated from a system that they assist to treat. For example, capitalism cannot exist without labor, and workers on the other hand are disgruntled. A consciousness forms around which the working class is created, and when they fight with oppression, they destroy the system, resulting in a new stage of social development and the eradication of private property rights, as a result of which classlessness occurs. From the foregoing, it is apparent that a class exists in the Marxian sense only when class consciousness evolves and the class organizes itself to pursue its own goals. And as a result, it transforms from a class within a class to a class within a class. And thus, according to Marx, the most important element of social inequality is power, specifically economic power. Those who have it and those who do not, that is, oppressors or oppressed, are divided in society. The economic interpretation of Marx is an explanation of what accounts for this power disparity. The ability to dominate and oppress people who do not own the means of production belongs to those who own them. The dominant idea in a society are controlled by class. What is class consciousness? Marx specified a number of variables for the formation of class consciousness. First one, conflicts over the distribution of economic rewards between the classes. Second, easy communication between the individual in the same class position so that ideal and programs are readily disseminated. Third, growth of class consciousness in the sense that the members of the class have a feeling of solidarity and understanding of their historical role. Fourth, profound dissatisfaction of the lower class over its inability to control the economic structure of which it feels itself to be exploited victim. And fifth, establishment of a political organization resulting from the economic structure. The historical situation and maturation of class consciousness. The ruling class ideas dictate the ruling ideas in every era, that is, the class which is society's ruling material force is also its ruling intellectual power. At order for revolutionary ideas to exist in a given period, a revolutionary class must also exist. The revolutionary class has the most productive power of all the instruments of production, and as a result, Marx views classes as different subdivisions with divergent objectives. From a Marxist perspective, we can deduce that the major social classes have a mutually dependent and conflicting relationships. What is the capitalist industrial society? Marx distinguishes two classes in capitalist industrial society. The capitalist, that is the bourgeois, who pays the wages, and the laborer who gets the wages, that is the proletariat. Marx predicted that as a capitalism develops, these two classes will become more homogeneous, whereas Dahrendorf argues that classes will become more heterogeneous, that is dissimilar, and the working classes will be divided into three distinct levels, that is unskilled, semi-skilled, skilled manual workers and workers with divergent interest. Marxists anticipated in the 19th century that a time in capitalist development would arrive when the middle class would be absorbed by the proletariat, that is pauperization. However, during the 1950s and 1960s, a number of sociologists claimed that the contrary was true. They claimed that a process of embourgeoisement was taking place with an increasing number of manual workers entering the middle class. According to them, in industrial society, the classes were forming a pentagon shape, with the majority of the population being middle class rather than working class. This, according to Karl, is a requirement of modern industrialism, which necessitates a workforce that is highly educated, trained and skilled. These were ranked based on the market value of their expertise. Those whose skills were in high demand on the market were paid well and formed a different class. Weber opposes the polarization of two classes, instead referring to a white collar or skilled middle class. As capitalism advances, the middle class grows. He claims that a modern nation state necessitates a rational bureaucratic setup which necessitates clerks and managers from the lower classes to attempt reforms. They come together or band together for this reason, but never have a major revolution to reform their system. Another example is that there may be lockouts during industrial strikes, but there may not be a revolution to change the system. It is impossible, according to Weber. For workers to modify the entire system is not possible, because an ideological formula is required to change any system. Uneducated people cannot bring about a revolution without an ideological setup. Hence, it is necessary to have an intellectual class, that is an elite class or an elite group. The criticism of Marx's perspective. Marx's theories have been highly or heavily criticized, and as a result, his preoccupation with class caused him to overlook other social relationships as well as the impact of nationalism and international conflict on history. He also overlooked Europe's rising sense of national community, which generated new moral and social ideas that emphasize shared human interest. Marx has also been criticized for his theory of class division. Evidence suggests that capitalism in the 21st century has created a situation in which the working class is no longer completely alienated. Man's condition has improved as the overall standard of living has improved, as the extension of social service and job security. The emergence of a new middle class also violates the premise of class polarization. This new class, which includes workers, supervisors and managers, introduces a key aspect of stratification. Social prestige based on vocation, consumption and the personal style has a rapid rates of migration demonstrate the permanence of class in the Marxist sense, making stated groups more relevant. In terms of skill occupation, the working class remain greatly differentiated, and as a result classes are not uniform, and the rise of the middle class and the general class increase in living standards have resulted in the working class emulation. To summarize, we have discussed Karl Marx's thoughts on social stratification in this lesson, where he has given a point of view that has influenced and shaped human development. Karl Marx's ideas were founded in his historical materialism thesis, and from a historical standpoint, he looked at societal stratification. The shifting nature of manufacturing drove changes in human society stratification. The stratification system was built on the foundation of classes, and as the nature of production relations evolved, so did the nature of stratification. Okay, and this particular aspect will be replaced by the new ones, and this resulted in new class relationship as well. As a result, classes and stratification was similar to Marx. Marx emphasized the importance of class consciousness as a tool for achieving class objectives.